So I'm Emma. You might know me from such jokes as the peanut joke. And I am here today to talk with you about change and adoption. We have the 4 different perspectives for you today. We've got marketing, teachers, and project managers. The reason that we decided to include something about change and adoption was, I guess, it's no secret that internally we're experiencing a lot of growth. And we are actually learning these tips as we speak. And it's also important, we've recognised that it's important for you guys in your customer journey, that for implementing Schoolbox or implementing different releases, that change management is the key. So what is change? So in its simplest form, change is transitioning from the current state to the future state. And I promise this is my only GIF. And I think it actually illustrates very well the blobby mess that can happen in the middle. So the first point I want to make is change requires an extra initiative. Change is not business as usual. That extra initiative is required to give structure to that transition. And one of the most important things that I think we have to address is that ultimately this change impacts individuals, and those individuals are required to do their job differently. So a balanced change initiative requires 3 areas, and I want to make a point about the distinction between project management and change management. So we're here today to talk about change, and what we're essentially talking about is leading people. We're talking about people, so we're leading individuals and we're structuring that support. In order for this change initiative to be balanced and successful as it progresses, it also requires essentially 1/3 of leadership, which is the vision, is the sponsorship, and then we bring in the other element, which is the project management. That's where we're talking about the technical plans and actions. So, change management, how we prepare, equip and support individuals to successfully adopt change in order to drive organisational success and outcomes. If we can accept this, then we can accept that organisational change management is who will need to change as a result and how will they need to change. Organisations don't change, people do. So if the end goal is adoption, what could be considered one of the biggest barriers? Resistance. Change is scary. So let's have a look at some classic examples of resistance. So the world's first telephone. People thought that it was an instrument of the devil and a conduit for evil spirits. They thought touching it would electrocute them, and they thought that women would spend all their time gossiping. Which is probably the only one that's true, right? The world's first public railway. The human body was clearly not made to travel at the incredible speed of 50 kilometres an hour. It would melt their body and kill them. So the point that I'm making here is that it's interesting that resistance is generally not about, oh, the train is too squashy, the train is too costly. We're talking here about fear, we're talking about worry. We're talking about human nature. So we're talking about these psychological aspects, these feelings and these behavioural aspects. And I'm sure you'll be surprised to know it's 90% of the change initiative. If you can negotiate that 90% that sits under the surface, you're in good stead of breaking through and being able to enter into that 10%, which is the logical, it's the material, the rational. So this 90% is about these emotional, unconscious, immaterial, internal and social aspects. And these materialise in things such as perceptions, beliefs, experiences, power and politics. And it's these things that really, they can weigh down your change and they can prove to be an incredible roadblock. Megan's going to come back on and we're going to talk to you a little bit about this 90%.
There we go. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the reasons people react emotionally to change. And the first one is that change inevitably makes people feel like they've lost control. Imposed change in particular threatens individuals' self-determination, autonomy and territory. So people may feel that control has been yanked away from them. You may hear teachers say things like, "I've always decided what I'm teaching, why can't I now?" So to help people maintain a sense of control, it's important to invite them into the planning process and give them ownership over the change. Change can also raise a lot of unknowns, and this can be scary. People often want to maintain the status quo, no matter how ineffective. So rather than heading blindfolded into the unknown, people may just want to stay in the state that they understand and know. So it's important to reduce feelings of uncertainty by providing a sense of safety and an inspiring vision, so people know that the end goal they're working towards and how they're going to get there. Surprise. Change can feel like a big surprise to some people. So especially when change is imposed suddenly without time to acclimatise or prepare. So people can ask questions like, "Hang on, when was this decided? Why wasn't I asked?" You've heard that before. And react by refusing to be part of the change. So to combat this, it's important to be proactive and transparent. Provide your staff and your key stakeholders with lead time to familiarise themselves with what is coming up. It's also important to remember that people are inherently creatures of habit. So for many people, their routines are automatic and comfortable. So when change is too different or too much outside of their normal routines, they can feel overwhelmed and become distracted and confused. So when planning the implementation of something new, it's vital that you control the rate and amount of change. Consider what's important and remain focused on these things. Some people can also react emotionally because they feel that their reputation is on the line, especially those that have been associated with past solutions or superseded systems. They'll dread the perception that they might be seen as wrong or to have failed. So you may hear people complaining about how things worked better in an old system. To support these individuals, you need to acknowledge the efforts of the past and celebrate their failures. Now, by celebrate failure, I mean taking the time to reflect on and use what you've done in the past, what went well, what didn't. Embrace these lessons and use them as an opportunity to move forward. Change can also be riddled with skepticism and self-doubt. So people may outwardly express skepticism about new ways, but ultimately they're worried about their own skill levels and whether they'll become obsolete or won't be able to do it at all. So you may hear people become exasperated and say things like, "I just don't know how." So you can boost your team's competence and confidence by providing reassurance, abundant information and training. Anna's going to talk a little bit more about this later. Change is more work, there's no denying it, and it is a huge challenge. But the greatest challenge is often only whilst in transition, that misshapen blobby part that Emma showed you before between the current state and the future state. So it's important to remember that change is fundamentally about improvement. So whilst it's more work in the short term, the reward can be less work in the future. Leaders of change need to acknowledge the hard work of their team and reward them accordingly. So just something small like a staff morning tea can be enough to show that you understand that they are doing more work. Change can also trigger a domino effect and knowingly or unknowingly affect a range of stakeholders that you may not have even considered. So it's really important at the starting stages that you take the time to sit down and identify all people affected beyond the immediate circles of the obvious stakeholders. Be inclusive and communicate early. Change can also stir up those ghosts of the past. Historic resentments and old wounds can easily resurface at the moment a change initiative needs cooperation or support. You may hear things like, "We're just doing exactly what we did last time, and look how that turned out." It's important to acknowledge these ghosts of the past and resentments head on. Don't ignore them. This is perhaps one of the most challenging points to overcome, but a focus on constructive conversations and gestures to heal the past can help you move smoothly into the future. So I've had a look now at how people might react emotionally to change in general, and I'm going to pass you over in a second to Sophia, a highly experienced and amazing she's telling me not to, a project manager. So she's going to guide you through a Schoolbox-specific change that many of our schools are facing at the moment, and that's the move to building courses in Schoolbox. So just to clarify, this is about moving resources, reorganisation, and building your assessments in Schoolbox. So, welcome, Sophia.
Hi everyone, I'm Sophia. So we picked as a change management case study the introduction of courses, and for this exercise we did something like an imaginary requirements gathering session with a school that's not existing, but it might be similar to one of yours. And there are some findings or aspects of this transition that you may not have thought about. We are going to seek an answer to the following three questions. So, who are the stakeholders in such a change? How can we prepare and support and equip the individuals so that they successfully adopt the change? And finally, and equally important, we need to talk about how we can provide strong and inspiring leadership along the way. First of all, who are the stakeholders and why? So if we start from the class-centric approach, if we think of the different people in the school that are involved in the delivery of the class material, the situation might look something like that. We have the head of learning that will decide on the units of work to be taught and studied and what will be assessed. We have the teachers that will most likely plan their lesson day by day. So they don't have time allocated to do so, so they have to self-manage their time and find a way to be productive and effective. The IT team will offer ad hoc support to everyone, the teachers, so that they load their own material. And finally, the leadership teams will monitor how the whole class delivery works out, measure, and react accordingly. If we go to the course-centric paradigm, then we look at the stakeholders group, and we might find out that there are more groups that are emerged during the transition. Of course, it's the education heads, it's the teachers, the IT team, and we'll get into more information about all of those groups later on, but we may see that the marketing and communications involved. We have the business manager and the budget owners. We have the administration of the school. And of course, in the center, there are the executives that will have to glue everything together and plan throughout the process. Early involvement of all these stakeholders is very important. It promotes ownership and assists with the adoption. So the situation, we just came up with 9 different stakeholder groups discussing this change, but the situation is even more challenging in the real life because stakeholders are not groups, they're actually individuals. So they have to be considered as individuals. They have their own requirements, which have to be identified. They have their expectations, and it's up to you to find what these expectations are, what they think will happen to themselves, to their team, their department, or the school as a whole. They have a level of interest, which at least we have to try to maintain, if not enhance, so we increase their engagement. They also have influence as people, so depending on their level of influence, they can help or positively affect or negatively the change. So it is important that we get how to know them and we communicate with them. That's the way how we can manage them. So going to our second question, how can we prepare, equip, and support the individuals in this case study to successfully adopt change? So we're looking more into the stakeholder groups and what's their job in this transition from the class to the course environment. And we'll go back to our imaginary school. The education heads, to start with. They are the mentors of the system. So they will not dictate the content, but they will be mentoring the teams of teachers that will be working on it. So they have to work with planning and engagement, plan early and be inclusive with all the teachers involved. They will have to manage the delivery of the work. So they will need to look through the teachers, assist them as they're going through the course material, the class material, to load it into the course area. they're the ones that will have to identify and leverage on the exemplars. So they will have to look for very good examples and practices, and it may be surprising that it's not the very early adopters that come up with the best results at the start. They will have to look into quality as well, because there are moderation workflows that might be useful to put in place to start with. So that we make sure, for example, before we push the courses into the classes, that there are not mistakes there, so we don't have to run to correct them afterwards. And there's always continuous improvement. So there are changes, like the rollout process will have to look into the way of allowing the teachers to provide feedback back into the course material, so it's always relative and up to date. The teachers will need to learn how to use the system. So first of all, you have teachers across all the spectrum of abilities. You have the tech-savvy teachers, you have teachers that are a bit more reluctant to go to leave the traditional way of teaching. So you have to cater for all of them, and the best way to do so is allow them time to get into ample support and let them to do self-paced learning. The teachers in such a situation will have to allow them to contribute into the course material. So they will have to provide their own resources to be part of the whole faculty resources, and that will make them own this change. Another way will be to collaborate. They will have to collaborate to create the course and unit pages. So they will have to sit together in some collaboration area with their peers and work to do so. Personal touch and creativity. So you don't want them to feel that they lose control and they cannot provide their personal touch. They have the class pages now where they can use to be able to add their personal touch. And finally, this type of change is not for the material to become too prescriptive. It is important that all the teachers allocate time now to look into individualized learning and just try to find a solution that will suit their own students. Now they have the time to do so because they don't have to worry about building material from scratch. The IT team, they are usually the administrators of the system as well. They will have to support everyone along the way. They will have to set up the collaboration areas. They will have to configure the communication tools to allow everyone to be on top of knowing what's happening. They will have to structure the content, if that's how the school is approaching the creation of courses, and also set permissions that allows the correct individuals to have access to the correct areas in the system. They will have to work into setting up configuring the system so it reflects the policy decisions made by the head of the school, and they will have to create templates for class, course, unit pages, or get involved in the procurement of tools and resources. Marketing and communications, we can use the marketing department, they can help us to be the propagators of why we're doing any change and the benefits of the change. So the internal communications of the school can be used in order to promote the project. Then we can reach out to the next group, which is our parents and students, and it will be a standard quality now, so we can increase our transparency and let not only the parents, but even the wider community know about new best practice adoption of best practice examples and high educational standards. So they will have to revisit their communication strategy for that, and they will have to adjust more likely their communication calendars. The administration of the school. So if you are looking into a good, successful adoption with such a change, you will have to possibly recruit new personnel, you will have to get relief teachers, or maybe find new learning coaches. So they will have to help with that. They will have to find the time as well, the daily organizer, the PD leader, to fit time in their schedule for getting trained and creating the material. You have to look into the motivation and retention of personnel, and maybe in some schools that are very well organized and resourced, you will be able to use the admins to add content into the system as well. Then we have the business manager or the budget owners. They will have to think about their PD budget, IT budget for tools and resources. There is consulting sessions that maybe have to be considered, communication, advertising. All those bullets mean some thought that should be put into these different areas. So if the change is smooth, if the transition is smooth, parents and students will be just hurraying and there shouldn't be much into them. The parents would love the increased transparency. The students will be ready to jump onto and learn the new way of accessing their curriculum resources. So it all goes well. So there was a common theme across everything we've talked so far, and that's mostly about support of the individual as we're going through the change. So give them ownership, communicate early with them and avoid surprises, consider their priorities, provide them with time to prepare, look after their training and consulting needs, and equip them with tools and support systems. So how can we provide strong and inspiring leadership? The executives is the most strategic group, of course, when we're talking into the change management process. So the executives will have to, along with the person or the group that will be appointed to drive the implementation of the change, they need to take ownership, and they will have to sponsor, drive, enable, and support along the way. So first of all, they need to ask themselves, why do we want to change? What is the driver behind this decision? And once the why has been identified, then they can clearly build effective teams that work towards a common goal. Just make clear responsibilities, make sure that the teams are motivated, manage conflicts as much as possible, and communicate early and open with everyone. So early engagement is very important, as well as effective communication. And there are also some practical things that need to be taken care of. So, as we said before, just look into past lessons learned from past attempts. So if the school has tried in the past to go through the same change process, look at what went well and what went wrong. Look at the scope of the change and try to keep it small and contained. So try to have a balance between how much do we change at once and how often do we go back and change. Policies will need to be put in place. How are we going to try and minimum requirements that will make it possible to onboard all the faculties? Which are these? How are we going to ensure that guidelines are going to be followed? And will the change be mandated? These are decisions that depend upon the time constraints, the support you have in the school. There are many things that can influence this decision. And of course, identify your champions. You should always try and include in your champions the early adopters, the ones that are really enthusiastic about the change, but never leave behind the people that have the experience in the school, and they may be able to contribute with their experience into this initiative. And look, of course, into their training requirements. If you plan early, you will be able to have the budget and the time allocated to support throughout the implementation. So change is about people, and people is a huge mass of the work of managing their expectations, the human nature, and the emotional element of things. And if we look into people keeping that as a priority, along with project management and leadership and sponsorship, then we have a balanced approach. Because the success is, we believe in this cultural shift. Now we're going to hand over to Anna, who is going to talk to you about one of the great tools to help support a school with a change, that's the online courses. Thank you.
Thanks, Sophia. Okay, so what I'm going to talk to you about today is a fantastic tool that you can use to help you manage change, to help you onboard your staff, and to help you make sure your staff are really, really well trained. And that tool is the Schoolbox Teacher Course. Okay, so what is the Schoolbox Teacher Course? Well, a lot of you are already using it, but for those of you that aren't, the Schoolbox Teacher Course is a course that we use to teach schools how to best use Schoolbox. It's built in our Schoolbox Help Center, which is actually a massive Schoolbox instance with over 10,000 users. It's our one-stop shop to educate you, where we play teachers and you play students. Teachers work through the course and get the student experience while they work through 8 levels, watching videos, reading infographics, reading docs, reading blogs, and then actually going back to your Schoolbox instance and creating their own materials that they can use with their students. They then submit the URL, and myself or Megan review each one of those and give some great feedback on a rubric, and then give comments with specific ideas to their instance about how they can improve that, just like teachers do for their students. So it really takes the stress off you to have to train all your teachers, because we do it for you. To entice your teachers even more, it's mapped to It's mapped to not only the New Zealand criteria for teachers, but also the Australian professional standards for teachers. So one school that absolutely smashed their rollout of Schoolbox by using the teacher course is Cairo Christian School. It was so good that while we were out there chatting to their students about what they liked about Schoolbox, we decided to have a chat to Lisa about how she did that. So I've got a short video to show you, and I'm going to get Sam to help me put it on.
Well, we had a learning management system that we tried to implement a couple of years ago here that we didn't actually give any people time to. We expected teachers to be able to just work it out themselves. There were some short training videos that were created, but we really didn't put time into meetings and time into that teacher development that needs to happen. So, of course, teachers didn't use it. And it just became more of a frustration than actually something that was giving benefit to the school. So we decided that we needed to have a really fresh start. So we chose Schoolbox as our fresh start. And the school was fantastic in investing in my position as a head of e-learning to roll it out. We knew that we needed a person to actually take it, drive the change, and actually really help the teachers to learn how to use Schoolbox. It was, that's a really important thing to do. So we started off with a group of champions. So we picked out some really passionate educators from each campus, and we spent a few months actually training those teachers up so they were ready to be on the ground to help on day-to-day issues. And then to our normal teaching staff, on the school holidays before we released it, we gave them access to the teacher training course. And the teacher training, and we gave them some goals that they needed to achieve before the first day of school in the teacher training course, just to give them all of that background knowledge that they needed, because we knew they'd need the training course and some hands-on work. We then gave 2 days at the start of the year where we just did Schoolbox for 2 days and trained in that. We worked as individuals and we let teachers self-select. So we had groups where teachers were not confident at all at using things, up to groups where teachers were quite confident. And then we also swapped over into faculties. So we looked at how we were going to use those across faculties and primary school groups as well. From there, I've really been working with every sub-school across every campus and going in and spending time training teachers. I've also been working one-on-one with teachers that need extra help. And I've also been pushing teachers to use the teacher course. So I'll regularly send out an email every couple of weeks to staff with a link to a particular video from the teacher training course, encouraging staff to get onto those videos and learn that particular skill. And if something new comes out in Schoolbox, there is a new feature, using the training course as well to really push that out, and to using the help system as well to give that information to teachers. So for us, the teacher training course has been completely invaluable, especially being a multi-campus school. I can't be everywhere, and I really want to encourage my teachers to take ownership of their own learning as well, and to be confident in that and know where to go, not have to ask me questions all of the time. I want to equip and empower them. So a combination of myself, the teacher training course and the on-site champions has really helped our staff learn I would suggest in a really quick way. I'm not entirely sure how you'd actually implement Schoolbox without using the teacher training course. I think you're making your life really difficult if you don't use the online learning. We actually, in our Term 2 staff work day that we had, we got a teacher from each campus up to talk about their experience with Link, and we made sure we had young, old, male, female, and it was just fantastic. And they showcased what they did to the teaching staff, and it was brilliant. It was so inspiring for the teachers to hear that and see that. This is one of our teachers who's an older teacher, very, very reluctant user of technology, really did not like our previous learning management system, did not use it at all, was incredibly vocal about it, decided that she really needed to get on board with using when we implemented Schoolbox, and has done an absolutely brilliant job getting all of her assessments, her units, so going for all of her classes in there, making sure it's quite resource rich as well. She's just been absolutely fantastic. So very, very proud of that particular teacher. This is another teacher as well who is also an older teacher, and she teaches maths, and I get a lot of really positive feedback from parents about this teacher's particular course. It's really, again, resource rich. She puts in lots of videos. The kids find it's really helpful to use. She's also done a lot on differentiation with her courses as well, and she's got groups sitting under her classes where she delivers separate assessment tasks for. So that's been really fantastic. And another one that's been used is, again, English Year 3-4. This teacher has just done a brilliant job. She's also used this, the teacher training course a lot, and I'm easily able to direct her to videos when she's stuck, and she can teach herself, I guess, so that's quite helpful. Teachers actually really enjoyed, they were surprised to get the feedback. They thought they were just doing a course and, no one really cared as such. But when they got the feedback from yourselves, so everyone that I've spoken to was quite surprised by it, and they did use that in their, to reflect on what they'd done and change what they'd done. Feedback has been really fantastic and a surprising element, because other online courses that I've used in previous schools to train staff, you just don't get that. You just get a set of videos and off you go. So having that personal interaction is fantastic.
Okay, thank you, Lisa from Cairo. If you do get a chance today, and you haven't already, go and have a chat to her. Their method for managing that change has really, really been fantastic. So, in summary, the teacher course is awesome. Not only does it help you manage a rollout of Schoolbox, which is the case that Lisa showed us, but it's also really good to help you successfully re-engage your staff with Schoolbox. So if you're a school that's had Schoolbox for a while, the Schoolbox teacher course is also really helpful for you to introduce, to re-engage those staff, to introduce new features, and to get your teachers back excited about using Schoolbox. So what does it help you combat? It helps you combat those emotions of loss of control by teaching your staff areas in Schoolbox that they can build and they can personalise to their own style. It also helps you combat that fear of the unknown. It helps your staff get familiar with the system, and they also see lots of examples of how different things might look, so they can really visualise how their course will fit in. It helps you combat the emotion of creatures of habit by letting your staff see how things fit together and see how workflows affect one another to make their lives easier. It combats skepticism and self-doubt by allowing your staff to self-pace through their learning. So we've been talking a lot about, individualising learning for students and letting them self-pace. We should be doing this with our staff as well. They're also learners. In the teacher course, they can work at their own pace. They can re-watch or reread things, and they can submit things for feedback as often as they like. The final thing that it conquers is that fear of more work. As Megan mentioned, change is more work, but having the teacher course mapped to the standards allows them to use whatever time they spend in the teacher course as professional development hours, which they have to do anyway. So it's a really great way to entice your staff. All that said, Megan and I have been really busy for about the last year. And we're really, really excited because we've finally released the last level of the Schoolbox teacher course, the hero level. This level we had so much fun creating because not only does it teach your teachers how to use things, but it actually more looks at how you can apply that learning into the real picture in your school. It looks at things like continuous reporting, the flipped classroom, and some other really cool things. It also gives them a chance to have their say and show things to the community that they're really proud of. What we're even more excited about, though, is that we have some Schoolbox teacher heroes among us. You might have noticed that Megan and myself have been sporting these fabulous badges around for the last 2 days. And we've got some more of them up here. What we'd like to do is we'd like to present those badges to our new heroes. First off, we've talked a lot about Lisa, and we want to do a huge shout out to her because she was actually the first community member to become a Schoolbox hero. So, Lisa Dumasic. Next up, we have Ben Greenup from St. Rita's College. Chris Riggle from Sunshine Coast Grammar School. Aaron Divatini from Perth College. Matt Myers from Cedar Group. And finally, somebody who became a Schoolbox hero this morning, Nathan Wiggs from Charlton Christian College. But last, but definitely not least, we actually had our first teacher hero being one of our own staff members, other than Megan and myself, obviously. And that person is Matt Samble. Okay, finally, you might have noticed, and you've seen up here, these people in Schoolbox Help have their own profile pictures with this hero badge. We've done this so that when you're in the community, these people will be highlighted as experts and you'll know just how awesome they are. So whenever they're talking, you should listen. Now, you're probably feeling a little bit left out if you didn't get a badge. So if you're interested in joining the elite Schoolbox Hero Club, it's not too late. We have lots more badges and we're keen to grow the club even more. So get out there and become a hero today. Also, stay tuned for a Schoolbox IT Administrator course coming soon. Thank you.